Good afternoon, everyone. So sorry we are running a little bit late. Technical difficulties. And when I say technical difficulties, blame me, blame me. But welcome to the October edition of Culture and Convos, which is a podcast that my agency, Precise Communications, produces to talk about the intersection of culture with marketing, PR, advertising, and everything else that falls under the communication spectrum. So I'm super excited today because there is no way that we would have let this year go by without talking about the 50th anniversary of hip hop, my favorite genre. So I'm rocking my Adidas today. I got on shell toe shoes. You can't see them, but I'm rocking it in the spirit of that. And so this is the conversation that I've been looking forward to the absolute most all year long. And I'm super excited about the guest that I have today. So I'm going to start with Damo Jones, who I am meeting for the first time, but I am super impressed by all that I've learned about her. She is also a fellow CEO, but she is the director of artist relations at Empire and CEO of In the Know Consulting LLC. So when it comes to entertainment, particularly in music, she has done everything from artist relations, PR, everything it sounds like. So she'll be able to explore and discuss and share some of her experiences. And then I have my old friend, Mr. Derek Rivers, who is the creative director at Nine Rooftops. And Derek and I have known each other for a long time, and he has about 2 decades of experience in this marketing communications game, really focusing on specializing in being a creative director in the advertising space, commercials, and things like that. And he is definitely relevant to this conversation because he has produced commercials that have used hip hop. And I needed Derek in this conversation so that I wouldn't be the only Gen Xer on this call. And then we have Amir Shaw, who is the author of Trap History, an acclaimed book that he put out. Was it a year ago, Amir?
It's actually 2020.
It was 2020. Has it been 3 years? Oh my
Yeah,
God.
yeah,
COVID just has everything
yeah.
just a blur. But he has written a book about how trap music has really impacted the hip hop genre. And what I love about it is it really honors and celebrates what Atlanta has contributed to the genre. But also, Amir is a well respected and celebrated journalist who has covered everything in the culture. He has interviewed tons of celebrities, and we get a chance to work with him because we're in PR, so he knows about how us PR people leverage music and celebrities and all of that to get coverage for our brands. So excited to have all of you. So thank you for joining us. So I'm gonna get started. Amir, I'm gonna start with you actually. So, as an author and a journalist, you've been covering and writing about hip hop, particularly for Black media outlets. So, tell me, how do you think hip hop has impacted our culture? And is it just Black culture or American culture? Why is hip hop so powerful?
Yeah. So what's interesting about hip hop is that it's different from most music genres. Is that rap is different from most music genres because it falls under hip hop. Is what we consider the culture. It's the way you talk, the way you dress, the way you actually perceive the world. And so the way hip hop, I guess, manifests itself is that it's not just something that's a product of music, but this is how we live our everyday lives. Um, in terms of it, is it being an American art form? It's a truly an American art form, just like jazz, just like rock and roll, both inspired by Black youth culture. And so we've seen how Black youth culture has been able to penetrate our society, not just from a national standpoint, but from a global standpoint as well. And so hip hop is one of those things that we've we've seen the explosion of it mostly due to media. It came at a time when cable TV was exploded, and then we had magazines and we had newspapers. So media became so prominent at a time when hip hop hit, which was the 80s and the 90s, and so we've seen the explosion of hip hop due to the mass marketing and the explosion of marketing and media over the years.
Thank you, Amir. Well, that was a perfect segue into what I was going to ask you, Derek, because today's conversation, we titled it "A Media Mixtape: Hip Hop's Influence on PR, Advertising, and Marketing." And, I remember back when hip hop really first started, there was a lot of conversation around, is this going to last? All, the older generation were talking about, all these kids are doing is talking over music. They just talking over music. They're not even talking about anything. And to see it be leveraged and commercialized in a way that reaches audiences beyond, our culture, our communities, our neighborhoods, but nationally and then internationally, brands have really, really caught on. We saw it, in 1986 with Adidas and Run DMC, again, while I'm rocking this. And then, from there, MC Hammer, we've had Cardi B recently, we've worked with Coca-Cola utilizing Lupe Fiasco. So we've seen that. So Derek, talk to us a little bit about how you have seen hip hop incorporated in marketing since its birth 50 years ago. And why do you think brands and ad agencies have maximized it in the way that it has? Like, what does it do for the brand?
That's a great question. Hip hop, I've been in this business for about 20 years now, like you said, and I've kind of seen it in three phases. The early days, like you talked about with Adidas, a lot of brands were hesitant to embrace the genre in general, right? It was seen as more as a counterculture, rebellious, if you will. And then a few of the brave brands out there, like Adidas, like St. Ides, they stepped out and they started to begin to partner with hip hop artists in the late 80s. And these partnerships, they kind of really helped legitimize hip hop and help brands reach a new audience with their urban consumers. And then the second phase was like the rise of hip hop culture, right? So as hip hop culture grew in popularity, more and more brands began to incorporate hip hop elements, if you will, into their advertising. We'll talk about that in a minute. That included music, artists, fashion, into the commercials, into the print ads. And then now, here we are, 2023, hip hop is a mainstream genre. And it's one of the most popular musics in the world. So as a result, brands have come to see hip hop as a powerful way to reach a wide range of consumers. And hip hop culture is now seen as aspirational, where like before it was more counterculture, right? So brands are eager to associate themselves with it. And there are some specific examples how hip hop has influenced advertising. But I think the four parts I would say is obviously in music. Hip hop is widely it's in commercials, it's in our cars, it's in our clothing, it's in our soft drinks. And then the artists, the hip hop artists are often featured in these commercials. And then obviously fashion. Fashion is used, in advertising to appeal to our younger consumers, and then the language. And it's kind of like it's kind of marries as to what hip hop is: MCing, DJing, b-boying, and dancing. So it's kind of like all right there. It's kind of like that whole mix. So.
So Damo, I love the fact, which I want to mention to everybody. Notice that Damo is in the studio, which I love. But Damo, as I mentioned, you've done everything in the business of entertainment. Like I said, PR, artist development, branding, promotions,
radio.
And radio. You had so much on your bio, honey. I was like, wow. Brand partnerships. So I really want you to look at it kind of from both sides. Like, why hip hop? What is it about hip hop that draws brands to this music genre? Because at times, as Derek said, has been counterculture, but at times been seen controversial, but now it's more mainstream. I mean, Cardi B, tell us what the attraction is.
I mean, it's really those three words. We are the culture. you know? So at the end of the day, a lot of people want to know what we're doing next because that's the hottest thing. And you can see it, how it translates all across the country. You know, hip hop has taken over, even from our company here at Empire. We're an international company where we have a whole um West African division. You know, we have artists that are all the way in Egypt and Pakistan, you know, that are actually rapping hip hop. We literally just had a 12, 16, I don't know, he kind of young, but he like 15, 16-year-old. His name is MC Abdul. If I'm not mistaken, he's from Palestine. And literally he learned English from rap, listening to old school R&B. That's how he learned English. So listening to how he, like, his flow, it sounds like old school LL Cool J and Rakim. Like, those are like the people that he emulates, and those are the people where he was able to learn. So to me, I feel like right now the rest of the world is really just catching up to what we've already known. You know, even in our days where it was jazz and blues, people were taking what we had and trying to redo it, you know. So for us, it's like we've always been the culture. And I feel like we're now just understanding our power to the point where we're now feeling empowered by it to be able to take over and just be like, yeah, this is ours and this is what we got going on. So it's like now brands are realizing that we are empowered by our strength, and they want to be more involved because we're not, you know, being quiet behind closed doors anymore. We're saying, hey, this is us. You know, that's not, you can't redo this. It has to be authentic. It cannot be recreated. It had to be done by someone like us. So I think for us, when it comes to hip hop, it's really just the rest of the world catching up.
Absolutely. So, Amir, as I mentioned, Precise has, done a couple of campaigns where we've had the opportunity to work with hip hop artists and, different celebrities. But, we've worked with Lupe Fiasco, Jazzy Jeff recently for a campaign about cardiovascular health. How have you seen brands or organizations, either, commercial brands or even nonprofits, use hip hop to support, who they are, sell their product, or, promote their mission? And tell us, as a journalist, is there things about it that you like, or have you seen things that you did not like how an organization did it?
Definitely. So as a journalist, we get pitched all the time as far as our news coverage, and just over the I guess the last decade or two, we've seen how Apple used Dr. Dre to sell headphones. McDonald's has been very prominent in the hip hop space, using Travis Scott to sell a Travis Scott meal.
Right.
We've seen Sprite, of course, Coca-Cola and Sprite doing ongoing campaigns geared towards hip hop, using hip hop artists to just promote whether it's a specific drink or like a festival, something of that nature. Right. In terms of how do I perceive it as a journalist, you can tell if someone is actually invested in a culture versus using hip hop just to sell the product. Now, when you talk about investment, what are you doing to give back to the community as a whole? Are you, giving those dollars to nonprofits or communities or things that's going to actually help the next generation in a sense? And so you can always follow that money trail from a corporation to see, okay, are you actually investing in community initiatives beyond just trying to sell a product? And so for me as a journalist, I always think about, I always do my research to say, okay, is this company really just using us for hip hop only because they know that hip hop can reach a certain community, or are they actually invested in a community in terms of a monetary sense? And so it's always good to do your research to see where those dollars actually go, and where, what companies are actually, reaching out and giving back to the community in specific ways.
I love that. So it's really about authenticity. And that's one of the things that we tell our clients, Derek. I know you do the same thing. We tell our clients one shot deals don't work, because our audience, African-American consumers, Hispanic, millennial consumers, are paying attention to whether you are sincere or not. They want to make sure that you are not, committing cultural appropriation. There has to be some authenticity. So, Amir mentioned a couple of brands, and you mentioned Sprite. And Sprite, honestly, probably has been the one that has been the most consistent. McDonald's has as well, but Sprite, when you think of hip hop and a brand, Sprite is the main one that comes to mind with the ciphers and everything on the BET Awards and all of that. But Derek, which are there any other brands that you can think of that has successfully used hip hop as a part of their brand platforms? And if you do think there's one that stands out, tell us why. What have they done well?
Oh, absolutely. Obviously, Coca-Cola for sure. Pepsi, Pepsi obviously is definitely have leaned into using hip hop correctly. You can see it with Mountain Dew. You can see it with Ruffles. You can see it with Blue Can Pepsi. I think that's a great example. Apple, of course, has tapped into hip hop culture. Nike, clearly, if you think about Jordans, that's hip hop culture, right?
Absolutely.
Using Spike Lee in the Nike spots, that's definitely tapping in. Mars, the creation of Mars, is a great example of tapping into hip hop culture. And then, of course, McDonald's, Nissan. I worked on both of those brands. I did a McDonald's commercial. I did a Nissan commercial that tapped into hip hop culture. So yeah, I think those are some of the brands that come top of mind.
Damo, I see you shaking your head. Do you have any thoughts on examples of brand partnerships that you think have been done well or executed well?
I mean, really, they said all of them. I would say another great brand partnership back before, racist comments was Tommy Hilfiger. Just seeing its impact in our culture in the early 2000s, in the late 90s, 2000s, I think that was something that was done very well. And just seeing how even Tommy Hilfiger himself was able to engulf himself into hip hop culture to be a part of various different things, from making his own mixtape, things like that, and the origination of a mixtape, and how he was able to see that the hip hop culture was going to be beneficial to his brand, and being able to align the two together. I thought that was a really dope thing in the past. But as far as future things are concerned, like, everybody understands the importance of being a part of brands and, inclusion and things like that. So I would, most definitely Sprite. Sprite tops everybody. They all the way up there.
Okay.
Voltron commercials are classic.
Yeah, like, you can't beat them.
Can't beat those. Those are incredible. I actually worked for the agency that came up with those spots. Funny thing about Tommy Hilfiger, he actually would sing Grand Poobah clothes every week back in the late 90s, personally, because he realized how important that was.
Yeah.
So early adopters, yeah. So incredible story.
Well, Derek, take us back a little bit. So let's talk about, if you can, recall, when you're in that creative process and you're selling to the client and you're talking to them, about, using hip hop in a commercial. What are you saying to them? How are you selling it to them? Like, what makes them say, okay?
Well, one of the reasons why they hire people like us in agencies that I've worked for in the past is because they trust us, right? Yeah. They know that we have the inroads to we know how to speak to African American consumers, right? The consumers, and so there's already a baked in trust right there. But when I sell in the idea, the first thing I'm trying to do is be authentic, right? And that's the first thing. Hip hop culture is all about being authentic, and brands need to be genuinely relatable. And not every brand can do that, right? You got to be invited to the barbecue, if you will, and you have to have been there for a while to be able to talk to that particular target, right? You just can't open up your door and say, "Hey, guess what? We're going to do a hip hop commercial." So being authentic is very, very important. And also, when I'm selling an idea, be inclusive. Hip hop culture is very inclusive. Brands need to be respectful of all people, cultures, and this means avoiding any type of being offensive or discriminatory. Right. So you have to be careful about that. Obviously, being creative. make sure that the concept is right, it fits. When I did a McDonald's commercial, it was all about the flavor, right? We were struggling with how we're going to position this Big Mac. It's an iconic burger, but what's the one thing about the Big Mac that separates itself from the other? It's about the flavor. And so that naturally led into Flavor in Your Air by Craig Mack. So it was a natural fit. It wasn't something that was just forced upon. It was like, okay, this is a concept that actually makes sense. And the Whopper can't do that, right? And so it just made sense. So you have to make it make sense, right? So your concepts have to be aligned with that creative brief. And then, of course, lastly, be supportive. Hip hop's all about the community. Again, I talk about brands have to have that. You got to be when you're. You need to be supportive of the hip hop community, but this means sponsoring hip hop events and initiatives, and also being able to work with hip hop artists and influencers. Some brands can do that, some brands can't. So you have to make sure that your brand can say that. So.
And Amir, I'm just thinking about Atlanta and the South. I'm thinking about, beyond commercials, how hip hop artists are now influential to the point where they can influence business and influence politics. I was so excited when I saw Killer Mike on an episode of Billions a couple of weeks ago. And just thinking about how his reputation has exploded and he's perceived in a different way. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. Like, we've seen how artists have been able to not just, make their way in music, but also explore other avenues, whether it's politics, whether it's, entertainment and acting. I got an opportunity to interview 50 Cent not too long ago. We talked about his deals with Vitamin Water and how he actually got ownership early on in Vitamin Water, and it was a humongous payday for him. Following the sale of Vitamin Water. And so we're seeing a lot of ownership now, whereas first it was about, could they, get marketing dollars and they were actually promoting these products. But now we're seeing more ownership, more artists get on the ownership side in terms of, impacting, having an equity versus just, selling or promoting a product. Of course, Jay-Z, Beyonce have done a tremendous job of having that type of ownership. You think about what's happening with what Diddy is doing with the Spirits brands and things that he's doing also with media owning Revolt. And so there's different avenues that artists have been exploring outside of just being, someone, a face of being used by companies as a face to promote a product. Now they actually want to look into ownership. And so I think that's the next phase of what hip hop means, is how do we own, versus just selling. I think ownership is a big part of that.
Interesting. I love that. Damo, so you've worked on brand partnerships. Tell us some things that brands should consider, and what are some things that they should not do or not ask when they come to you looking, to partner with an artist. And would really love to hear that from the perspective, as, a lot of times it's agencies like mine that are kind of like brokering the deal. So what would you recommend, and kind of what are the do's and don'ts?
For me, it's more so, how does this opportunity become beneficial for both parties involved? That's number one. Like, how does this make sense for everybody that's involved? One of the don'ts is not to come into a situation just being stereotypical, because a lot of the times that happens. Just because you think that an artist is a rapper doesn't mean that they smoke weed, so they wouldn't want a backwoods sponsorship. Things like that. Just more so to be very intentional about understanding the growth of that person or that artist or that brand that you want to, work with, because that's the important thing. Like, I've seen independent artists, you know, just align themselves with beauty brands to find themselves to no longer just be artists anymore. They're now models or, you know, things like that. So for me, it's more so just understanding the future of each brand that's involved. That's all. And the main thing is literally the stereotypical thing. Like, don't just look at someone and just automatically assume what kind of brands that they may want to be involved with. Literally ask the questions, do the research. Like Amir says, like, it's not just a journalistic type of thing. Anyone that's working with anyone should, you know, kind of know who you're working with and where they're going. So then you can kind of align where their future goes. Like, when it comes to artist development and, you know, working in artist relations, I always have to be like 12 steps ahead. A lot of the times I'm like, I call myself a magician. Like, I know what you want prior to you even asking for it. I'll say, hey, you want some food? You'll be like, nah, I'm not hungry right now, but I still got a plate put to the side because I know you're going to be hungry. You know, that type of thing. It's like you have to kind of foresee the future to know where you see someone going, you know, and then move forward from there and align that person with those brands that can kind of move them forward, or align a brand that wants to be more inclusive or to see themselves moving forward with someone that can actually do that. Same thing with where we've seen with the Travis Scott meal and the Sweetie meal. It's like you want McDonald's wanted to be more involved in the culture and what was going on, and they knew that, oh well, we know Sweetie is making a whole lot of noise about the random things that she puts together on our food. Boom, kids are already doing that. People been putting fries and Frosties from Wendy's, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's been a thing already. So it's like seeing how something is doing and just kind of maximizing on it. That's all.
No, I love that. Talking about being organic, because I know that we definitely try to approach that when we align any brands with any, you know, celebrities. And I remember years ago working with a client, and they wanted to work with a hip hop artist, and they said, we need one that doesn't cuss. We were like, Will Smith doesn't rap anymore. We had the hardest time like trying to find someone, and they ended up going with someone that they felt like was really positive, you know, and may use curse words, but it still had like a positive kind of agenda.
Like a YB and Corday kind of person.
Right. But this was years ago where you just didn't see as much of that, which I think hip hop has like taken these weird kind of curves from, you know, being really socially, politically, you know, conscious, to doing it in a different way and talking about what's going on in the hood, to then going to, we're talking about materialistic things and women and and then it's like, now I feel like it's a plethora of like everything, whatever you want to listen to, whatever you want to hear, the genre offers that to you. So Derek, were you going to say something? Derek?
No, go ahead. I'm agreeing with you.
Okay. Of course you are. No. The only thing Derek and I don't agree on is who's the best football team in the United States, but that's a whole but recently too worked on a campaign for Lexus for the 50th anniversary of hip hop, or leading up to, and we worked with Biggie's small son, CJ. And one of the things that they did was they created or recreated Biggie's neighborhood in the metaverse, working with Complex. So Derek, I want to hear from you. Like, where do you think the future of marketing in hip hop, that intersection, is going beyond, like we talked about commercials, we talked about buying, you know, buying companies and leadership and politics, but you know, we're also saying it's in gaming more. But where else do you see, like, what other kind of, you know, vehicles can us in the marketing profession leverage to tie into hip hop?
I think we've seen it now. I think in the past 10 years, we've seen, fortunately, we've seen hip hop artists in the business world, and they're succeeding in the business world. And that has an effect on how we market these products and services. So you've seen Dr. Dre, you've seen 50 Cent, you've seen so on and so forth. I can go on forever. I think it's becoming really interesting how the game has kind of changed a bit. I think the metaverse is definitely a great example of what you just shared, but also AR, that augmented reality is tapping in. So it's just wide open. I think also you just talked about the growth of hip hop, how hip hop has expanded, and now there's these different types of hip hop, like the umbrella, and then you have these subgenres that fall under hip hop.
Right.
And I think that's super important because as a 49-year-old, it's hard to understand, like, this music over here, I don't really understand. I know it's a part of hip hop, but I get it. It's important.
Right.
We have to lean into that. And that's why these young people that are coming are super helpful, particularly in the advertising space. So there are things that I'm not aware of that the younger people are understanding, that this space, this media space that I'm not really aware of, is super, super important, or even this style of hip hop is super, super important, that it's effective. You got to embrace that. So, so it's wide open.
So we've talked a lot, and I want you all to each of you to weigh in on this. So we've talked about, the culture. We've had a conversation. I had a conversation with my friends a couple of weeks ago, and they were talking about for the culture, everybody doing it for the culture. They feel like it's overused. I'm like, I like saying it. I'm doing it for the culture. So I'm all about the culture. But let's talk about, brands would not do this, because I'm thinking about, we've gone from, Sprite to, we had L Cool J with Coke, but now we have the Kroger commercial with Flo Rida, low. So they're talking to everybody. So can we talk a little bit about the appeal of hip hop beyond the African American community, and why do you think, or what is the conversation, Derek, the creatives are having that says this is even going to appeal to mainstream? Because I can imagine some executives, especially if they're a little older, they might be scared, like, oh, I don't know, this doesn't fit us, whatever. Amir, you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, what's interesting is that so Lil Baby, he's from Atlanta, from Oakland City, Southwest Atlanta is the hood. And in 2022, Budweiser tapped Lil Baby to create a song for the World Cup. Now, the World Cup took place in Qatar, which is one of the most conservative countries in the world, where, if you get caught wrong or holding hands, or they have like rules where that just don't apply in America. Like, you can't do too much in Qatar. It's very conservative.
Right.
And it was even a thing where they didn't know, with Budweiser being a major sponsor for the World Cup, if there was going to be an issue, because in Qatar they don't really promote alcohol use. And so, but they tapped Lil Baby to create a song for the World Cup, in one of the most conservative countries in the world. And it just shows you the impact of rap music, of trap music, is because Lil Baby is considered, he comes from that trap music cloth of, talking about street rap. And this is an artist who Budweiser saw could sell a product globally, could help them sell or promote the World Cup, which is actually bigger than the Super Bowl. And so that just shows you the magnitude of hip hop, the magnitude of trap music, the magnitude of Atlanta, and how Atlanta has impacted, culture worldwide and globally. And so, for me, seeing Lil Baby connect with Budweiser for the World Cup was a moment that we probably wouldn't have seen 20 years ago. But it just shows you the growth of hip hop, where you have an artist who makes street music, what we call trap music, but he's being tapped by a major brand for the biggest sporting event in the world.
Crazy.
I think, to answer your question, Alexis, when you look at the Kroger commercial, it was catchy. When I first saw it, I was like, oh, what? I was like, okay. They went there.
Yeah.
But what saved them was they used animation. Imagine if they had used real people in that commercial, it'd been awful. But they used animation, and they did it tastefully, where they're not showing people twerking in the club, but they're showing low. It's like, it was catchy, and you got it. Okay, cool. And so they avoided all of that, and I think that's a great example of using something, tapping into it, but not overusing it, and not offending anyone. But using it in a tasteful way. And I think those characters were catchy. You know, they was like, oh, this is cool. You know, so it did work.
Yeah, because they're still playing that commercial.
They're still playing it after like 3 years now. It's
Yeah.
catchy. You
I
see it on
need
the
to see
billboard.
this commercial.
I think you're in Kroger's
We don't have Kroger here. I got
Yeah.
Kroger. I'm a Carolina girl originally, so I know
Yeah.
about Kroger, but I ain't seen this commercial.
Yes.
Like
Google
out here, all the
Kroger.
commercials is
Right.
different.
It's fun. It's fun.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So listen, we are going to take some audience questions now. Okay, we have one from Imani Gill. Hello, Imani. Along the lines of brand alignment, do challenges arise when merging brands and artists who appear to not share the same demographic audience wise? I read that kind of choppy, but hopefully you guys got the point. Do challenges arise when merging brands and the artists who appear to not share the same demographic?
Yes. Just because of the fact that most of the time, if your target audience is one way, and then the brand's target audience is another way, it has those moments where you can really figure out like what's going on. Just like Amir said, like the whole Budweiser commercial for the World Cup, like his target audience, Lil Baby's target audience we still call it soccer. You know, we're not calling it football. We're calling it soccer. So, you know, it does have those moments where you got to kind of most definitely educate both sides so that the message that you want to convey actually comes off the way that it needs to. But challenges do arise because you have those moments of just trying to make sure that you're not culturally appropriating versus, you know, actually trying to be authentic at the same time.
Right. Okay.
And that's another reason why Snoop is perfect, because he appeals to everyone and you can use him in everything, just about.
Who would have thought that Snoop, one, would be partnering with Martha Stewart?
It's brilliant.
And enhancing her brand.
It's brilliant. Yeah.
It's amazing to see where he's gone to where he is. Okay. How do you use insights to help guide clients and brands to lean more into the hip hop or urban culture? So how to use insights?
Love this question. I think I know who even wrote this question. A strategist, probably a brand planner. This is a great question. One of the things that I do when we get the brief, and we're thinking, I'm working with my partner. And when I say partner, in the advertising world, art directors and copywriters tend to work together, right? To come up with an idea. We're sitting thinking of an idea. The first thing that we do is we kind of throw stuff on the board and these rough ideas, and we say, you know what? I like these. Let's talk to our brand planner or strategist first before we even go up to our executive creative director to get the approval, right? We go to our brand planner because that person has all the research. Let me tell you something. Research is so important when it comes to developing creative ideas. Tap into that research because you'll be surprised at what the numbers make it make sense. That person has all the numbers. And we'll run our ideas by that person. And then just to get the head nodding, like, yeah, this is good. Oh, by the way, if you guys are going to go down that direction, I would think about X, Y, and Z. Other than that, it's a great idea. That kind of gives you like a feel good. You can back up your idea based off of those insights and that research that you've gotten from that person. Prime example, my writer and I were working on a spot for Nissan. It was an Altima. And we were just throwing stuff. We had a whole bunch of ideas. And I said, hey, you know what? When is this spot going to launch? And she was like, oh, I think it's like in September. I said, boom, football. Altima, we were talking to single Black women. Mm-hmm. Black women are now watching football. This is back in 2015, right? Okay, so there's a connection there. This spot's going to start off in the fall. I wonder what's the numbers? What is the insight? What is the research? Can we defend this spot, this idea, by doing a football-based commercial with the Altima? Let's go talk to Dewana. We went to her office, closed the door. We got an idea. We want to know what you think. And she's like, I'll do some research. She comes back the next day, and she has all this research on Black women going to NFL games. Like, it's like tripled. We're like, okay, we're good. We can do it. We have the clear path to write a spot that made sense about a black woman that knows more about football than her own boyfriend. Wow. And so that idea actually we actually produced that spot. So again, using those insights, using that research to help you come up with creative ideas is imperative.
As Jay-Z said, men lie, women lie, numbers don't.
Numbers don't.
Numbers don't.
Brittany says, how do you all feel the social media era revolutionizing hip hop and marketing and advertising? How do you feel that the social media era is revolutionizing hip hop and marketing and advertising?
It's another media stream, right? So when you concept a TV commercial, you do it differently when you're doing a social media post or a video. Example, working with McDonald's, we were tasked to work with influencers, but we didn't give them a script because that would be more like a commercial. You're doing an Instagram reel that's 30 seconds, right? So give them the leeway to do whatever they want with the product, and then figure out what rises to the top before you post it. So the approach is a little bit differently. Follow the brief. Don't say these 4 or 5 words. You have to say these 4 or 5 words. But here's your parameters. Go and let it be authentic as possible. So you're not. It's not a script. It's different. It's not a radio commercial. It's not a print ad. It's not a TV commercial. It's authentic. It's coming from an influencer. So that's the big difference.
Scott Johnson asks, how does an emerging urban motorsports brand incorporate hip hop into the international market of motorsports? Interesting question.
I know this guy. Scott is my frat brother.
Hi, Scott.
He actually pledged me.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Great question. That sounds like NASCAR, I guess, or incorporating hip hop into the international market of motorsports. I think NASCAR's got some work to do. I think the best way for that, just in my opinion, the way I look at it is NASCAR highlights and continues to welcome the hip hop consumer, if you will, or African Americans, people of color, to their events. You got NASCAR drivers now. Showcase that. That's how you got work to do. So the sport is gradually changing. You can see that happening. So lean into that. Lean into what's being how the sport is changing, and people of color are taking an interest in it. It'll take off.
Especially in a market like Charlotte, you can most definitely take someone like J. Cole. And bring him into that situation just because there is that platform right there in that same state.
Right. Yep. But I think Amir's example of Lil Baby and Budweiser was the perfect example for that. I mean, aligning with the right hip hop artists can just do so much for your brand. And here's the greatest thing that for a motorsports company. Most of these artists love cars.
That was what I was going to say.
So there's a natural alignment there. You even have Swiss Beats loves cars, like all these celebrities. Rick Ross. 50.
I was about to say Rick Ross has a whole car show.
Yeah. So there's that natural, connection and alignment there.
And so Big Boy, before we go on, Big Boy actually teamed up with Cadillac recently, and so he's on a Cadillac commercial. And so for years, Outkast they were talking about Cadillacs, and they were driving Cadillacs. Yes. And so now Cadillac teamed up with Big Boy to release their latest vehicle.
Absolutely, brands have to pay attention to what
the artists
are saying and doing. Damo, like you said, the whole Adidas thing with Run DMC was Run DMC just talking about the fact, like how they lived their everyday lives and what they wore. They wore Adidas. And then someone from Adidas found out and came to see them at a concert, and then saw all these people hold up their Adidas, because I think Rev Run or one of them told everybody hold up your Adidas, and they were like, what? And that's how that brand collabo happened. So to me, that's the smartest thing. Okay. Another question. What has been the highlight for all of you when it comes to your work? How have you brought your whole self into the work you've done? Damo, I'm gonna start with you.
Sheesh.
Great question.
What has been the highlight when it comes to my work? Honestly, it's making my artists happy. You know what I'm saying? Them knowing that when they work with me, they're gonna get their all of me, and I'm there to just make sure that everything is like easy breezy for them. And how have you brought your whole self into the work you've done? Literally, I live authentically to me. If it's not something I want to do, I'm not gonna do it. If there is something that I feel like just doesn't align with me spiritually, morally, I'm out of it, kind of a situation. I walk in a purpose each and every day. So it's like if I'm not doing something that I feel as though aligns with my purpose or what I'm trying to bring to my life and my career, I'm good on it.
Okay. Derek.
Being able to tell your story, right? I'll give you an example because I always give examples. I wrote a spot for Nissan for the Maxima 2015. And the spot, it was the relaunch of the new Maxima. And our target was African American men. This car is super sexy, by the way. It's a 4-door coupe. That's what we call it, a 4-door sports car, if you will. It had been completely redesigned. And we told the story. This is where we use hip hop. We use Wiz Khalifa, Night and Day. And insights was, as a black man, when you're going into work, you're a different person than when you go. Right? We get this. We understand this. This is about a brother leaving work, had a hard day. He gets into his red Maxima, and then on the way home, the Maxima turns black. Right? Great commercial, beautiful spot, well written, shot beautifully. But the thing was, that was me. That was me getting in my car, going home, had a long day, and I got to change back into my normal self. And one of the things that we struggled with that spot when we sold that to the client was I forgot what the client wanted, something, a different ending. And I said, no, he's going home to his wife and kid. That's what he's doing. We're going to show this guy in a positive light. He's not going to hang out with the boys or whatever. He's going home to his wife and kid. And that. So we end up selling that spot in. And that spot, along with the other agency that did the general market spot, that spot did better. It's more relatable. So that was a highlight of one of my feather, the cap moments where we wrote a spot that was better than the other agency, and we were proud of it. It did better. So.
And what I love about that, and Amir, I'm gonna let you wrap us up almost. What I love about that, Derek, is in our roles are important because we help to shape perceptions.
Correct.
We have the power to influence. Yeah. And so when we can sit there and say to a brand, Black men isn't all these negative things that you've heard.
Right.
We're fathers and husbands. We're successful. And listen, we can walk in the office with a suit and tie, and then on the weekend run around with a sweatshirt and a hoodie and our J's, and we're the same exact person. So I love that. All right, Amir, highlight for you, and do you bring your whole self to work?
Definitely. It's multiple highlights. As a journalist, you get an opportunity to document history, document culture, got an opportunity to cover the Obama White House. The Obamas when they were in the White House. That was a pivotal moment. We got an opportunity to cover Jay-Z and Kanye in France, which probably will never happen again. So there was multiple moments. Of course, releasing the first book on trap music. That was a pivotal moment. And for me, it's definitely important as a journalist, as a Black journalist, to bring myself in any room that I'm in to actually represent, well, and actually do my research, actually do my homework when it comes to journalism, and not just go out and not be prepared. Preparation is key. And I think right now with media, I'm going off on a tangent, but with media, there's so many voices and not actually people actually doing the research when it comes to being involved in media. So for me, it's important to really represent well, especially for the Black media, Black journalists who've all paved the way for us to actually have a voice for the community. And so wrapping up, that's just, for me, it's really about being that person to actually continue that legacy of Black journalism.
Okay.
I would say that's the main thing in this industry, and that a lot of people should most definitely take away from. It doesn't matter regardless of what field you are in. Make sure you do your research. A lot of people don't want to do no research, and that's the reason why we do have all of these random podcasters just talking. And it's like, yo, where is the years of experience to back this up? Because right now you're just talking. I'm tired of people just talking. I've seen so many different interviews, different platforms, different festivals where they got people, backstage doing all these interviews. And it's like, you don't even know what to ask. You don't even know what this person got going on. You don't even know what their fans want to know. You're just asking the random surface stuff. And it irritates me personally. The journalist just does not like that. I cannot stand that, because I used to actually value myself when I was doing artist interviews on asking questions that no one else asked, but the fans really wanted to know.
Absolutely.
And I just don't see that nowadays. It's still the same regurgitated information. The same blogs are just putting out the same information. And it's like, if you actually dig a little deeper, you'll actually have a little bit more to the story to tell. Not the same story that you just got off of this blog that you done copied and pasted and called yourself a writer. It's not it. It's not it.
Yeah. That's because the lines are blurred between journalists and bloggers.
Yeah.
And now a lot of social media influencers are put in the positions to act as journalists, but don't necessarily have the training. And this, I don't mean this in a critical way at all, but that's how I see that, because I'm in PR, but also have a journalism degree. I've been in media. So it's the same thing with me. It's like nails on a chalkboard. When I hear certain things, when I read certain things, I'm like, it's, Okay, so I think our takeaways are, and Damo, you said it perfectly. Do your research, have your insights, understand your consumers, be authentic. It should, the brand alignment should make sense. It should be organic. Be consistent about what you're going to do. And then also don't look at it as, a one-time approach. Give back to the community. Recognize that hip hop is influential and powerful and goes beyond just the African American community. It has international potential. So, with that, I said I was going to close, but I do have to ask one more question. That's my favorite question to ask. And then we really are going to drop. Amir, when did you fall in love with hip hop? You're on mute.
So it's interesting. Multiple times, I think the first time that I actually could recognize hip hop was, I don't know, maybe kindergarten. I got my father gave me the Big Daddy Kane tape. So it was like the first time I actually realized what hip hop was. The first time I realized that hip hop could actually be inclusive to Atlanta, because in the earlier days of hip hop, you just really didn't see Atlanta music on the mainstream. You didn't see Atlanta music on Rap City or MTV in the early 90s. But when Outkast came out, I thought that was like the first time that people in Atlanta actually saw that hip hop could be have a viable space in this culture. Mm-hmm. And just a few days ago, Big Boy announced that Outkast has the best-selling rap album of all time, mm-hmm. which is amazing considering that Atlanta was pretty much an afterthought in the earlier days of hip-hop. For it to be an afterthought to now having the best-selling rap album of all time really just shows you how the city of Atlanta has always mobilized in terms of coming together for a common cause. And so for me, I think falling in love with hip-hop was really when Atlanta had a voice, and me being a part of that that voice and being able to document it as a journalist was something that made me continue to fall in love with it all over again.
Love it. Derek?
So I'm gonna go back a little further, a little older.
I was like,
by the way, I will say that Outkast album was so good. Southern Playlistic Cadillac Music.
yes.
Oh my God. I was the only one bumping that album at Virginia State University in 1994.
Wow.
I was like, y'all got to get up on this. And they were like, turn that country shit off. I was like, no, for real, this is dope.
Right.
Anyway, 88.9 WERS, Boston, Massachusetts. When I lived in Mattapan, Boston for a year, there was this rap show. It was aired through Emerson College. They showcase underground, classic, and local hip hop back in '87, right? You couldn't hear hip hop on the radio, on the mainstream radio, videos. It wasn't gonna happen. So they had this little show from 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock called Rap Explosion every Friday night. And I heard Heavy D, I heard Eric B. and Rakim. And when I heard that song, I was like, what is this? This is amazing. I literally fell in love with hip hop, and I've been falling in love with hip hop over and over again since. So WERS 88.9, Boston, Mass.
What Eric B. and Rakim song?
Oh God.
Paid in Full. Eric
Paid
B.
in Full. Paid in Full.
Paid in Full.
Paid in Full.
Okay. All right, Damo.
I hate this question because it is so hard. Like, one, I've been engulfed in music my whole life, you know,
Right.
so it's just like, it's really hard. And then originally growing up, I grew up between Jehovah's Witness and Baptist. So a lot of the times growing up, I wasn't able to listen to too much. So it was more so like my introduction was more like R&B music. And then like my first like real hip hop artist, we'll say like this Lil Bow Wow. So you know what I'm saying? So it's like this question really throws me off. But if I want to think of like an earliest memory,
right,
where I really fell in love, I would say it was watching the Ladies' Night video. Just seeing all of those women empowered together. We talking about women that I've loved watching over the years, from the radio aspect of Angie Martinez to, you know, being a TLC fan and seeing Left Eye in there. It was just like, yeah, between that and Lady Marmalade, you know, like I've always been a girl's girl, even though I surround myself with guys at all times. I've always been a girl's empowered girl. So watching the Kims and the Foxies, like that was my thing. And then my radio voice always just came from me wanting to have that MC Light announcer type voice. So yeah, it's like I've when I fell in love with hip hop, I was just engulfed in it in a lot of different ways. And it just always been a spark for me. But I will say one of the main things in this industry that I've always loved and I always talk about is the Big Mac that Diddy came up with when he was Puffy, where it was the two side for the Biggie and the Craig Mack tape, and he created it as a tangible item to showcase that this was about to be the biggest thing ever. Right. To this day, like I try to emulate that when I am working with an artist or working with a brand or whatever the case may be. It's coming up with those iconic, tangible moments that will like stand the test of time like that. Like they're going to talk about that for forever because that was marketing genius, you know? So yeah, I don't know, man. I hate that question. I really do. I feel like R&B. R&B.
Sorry, Damo. Sorry, but you know it was coming. You know it was coming.
Yeah. So Alexis, you got to give us your answer.
My answer. Oh, mine is as clear as day. We talked about this recently during August, during the Hip Hop Anniversary Month. But mine was listening to WBLS in New York. I was at my aunt's house for the summer in Jamaica, Queens. I think it was 85, 86. I can't remember. And I heard Eric B. for president.
Yeah.
And when I tell you it went through my soul, like I could feel it.
Yeah.
that was the moment. Like to me, when you have songs and you remember exactly where you were,
Mm-hmm.
those are the moments. Like I remember exactly where I was the first time I heard Method Man and Mary J. Blige duet. All you need, all I need, all I need.
Mm-hmm.
I remember those particular moments, but that Eric B and Rakim,
Yeah.
that got me. And it
That
just
was the
grew
album.
and grew and grew. And then Public Enemy. I'm a very like, I love socially conscious like hip hop. I like really, really smart like hip hop. But yeah. And it's been going ever since.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
thank you, Amir. Thank you for including me. I appreciate it. Okay, so thank you all for spending an hour with me today. We so appreciate you. This was a great conversation. I hope that everybody that was watching and that will watch later got some good takeaways from this and recognizing, the power that hip hop does have in the marketing communications arena. In that, we've talked about, all the whys, but really the big whys that the consumers have spoken. We love hip hop and it crosses all races, genres, ages, and borders. So, consider it as, something to leverage in future campaigns. So thank you everybody for joining. Have a great rest of the week and a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Good.
Thank you.